Hello, one of my missions for this year has been to sort out the shed, and while going through it I came across all the different finishes that I've been using. Looking at them, I can definitely see over the years I've tried quite a few, and I found it quite interesting to see the progression. Now, I'm so old and been doing this so long that when I started, I didn't even get my inspiration from YouTube. I watched a TV show called The Salvager and then later Le Salvager. It's strange because me and Keith talk about him quite a lot on our podcast, Workshop Banter. Now, his favourite finish was Briwax. I don't actually have any at the moment, but I've got some Liberon stuff, which is very similar. I used to use the tinted ones, like I think it was a medium brown I used to use. I even had it in a 5-litre tin. It's really easy to apply, you just brush it on and then you can buff it with a cloth, leaving a lovely silky waxy finish. Now, I used this for years, but the trouble is I learnt the hard way that it's not very hard wearing. You do a tabletop with it and within weeks it's all kind of just scuffed off. So it's great, and I still use waxes and we'll come back to them maybe in a bit, but it's no good for hard wearing projects. So I changed what I was using. So then in my search for a harder wearing finish, I went for a Hardwax oil. I mean, it sounded like it was going to work, and it did. You probably know of the popular brands like Osmo. They're the kind of big name in it, and I think they're originally developed for finishing floors, so anything you're going to be walking over needs to be pretty hard wearing. But I think I got it to do some tabletops. I was working in a pub at the time, so tabletops in pubs obviously get a lot of abuse. I've always used the Treatex brand. I found them a bit cheaper than Osmo, and I really like their range of colours. So they do colour tints, and then you get the kind of wood stain built into it. So instead of having to stain wood and then finish it, you've got it all in one. But they do colours as well, and I've used a few of those in the garden. I built a hedgehog house with some green in it a few years ago and some other bits like that. I found them to be really hard wearing and easier to apply. They do take a little longer to dry, but you've just got to budget that in. So I use these pretty much solely for a few years, and then I moved on and I've still kept using them for specialist projects that need a really hard wearing finish. So now I've just got the tinted or coloured ones, but obviously can get it in clear, and I did used to use that when I built shepherd's huts to do the floors. The trouble with these is they're quite expensive, not extortionate, but more expensive. And it was fine when I had a full-time job, but then when I quit to be a full-time woodworker, I was incredibly poor. So I went for a cheaper finish, and that was some Danish oil. I used this stuff for years on pretty much every project. Long-term viewers will know it, and it's almost an in-joke that that's what I would use. I never really knew what it was, and I found out that Danish oil is kind of a generic term, and every brand has a different formula. But basically, it's some oils with a varnish or drying agent mixed in. It is cheap, and I do like the finish, but I then got into the idea that I wanted to just use natural products. So I wanted to move away from this thing that I didn't really know what was in it and just use pure natural oils. Now, you've probably all heard of linseed oil, and there's two different versions. There's boiled linseed oil and just a plain linseed oil. The boiled one also has drying agents in. So you don't want that, but I started using natural linseed oil, but then I moved in after that to Tung Oil, which I prefer. The thing about oils is they're so simple. You just brush them into the wood and leave them to dry. You can thin down the first coat and you need to build up the coats. Disadvantages, because they're pure and natural, is there's no drying agents. They take a while to dry. But if you're just a hobbyist and have days to apply finishes to things, then it's fine. So I really liked the pure Tung Oil. The search for a natural wood finish led me on to something else after the pure Tung Oil, and that was Beeswax Oil. So this is a mixture of beeswax and linseed oil. So you get the nice easy to apply oil finish, but then you get the silky wax finishing feel that I had with my very first kind of Briwax finish. And I've been using this now for maybe 2 years, and this is my go-to finish at the moment, and maybe forevermore. But as you can see, I've been on a journey, so there might be something after this. But this stuff is all natural, easy to apply, relatively cheap to buy, doesn't dry super quickly, but that's not a huge concern to me. To be honest, I'm lazy. The easier it is, the better. And the oil-based stuff is so easy. It's hard to mess up. Anything you've got to brush on nicely, I'm not interested in. Definitely not interested in spraying. So this, at the moment, is my go-to finish. Now, I know I just said I don't like finishes you have to brush on, but I do keep on hand some varnish. I don't like using it, but sometimes a project just needs that extra protection varnish gives. So I have a small tin of this. One of the reasons I like the oils is I think they really bring out the natural beauty in wood. And that's great when you're using a really nice hardwood. But I like to use a lot of reclaimed materials. And when you're putting it on a bit of pallet wood, it doesn't always look too great. Just makes it a bit yellow, maybe a bit blonde looking. Not a look I love, and especially when you've got a different mixed match of woods and you want to make them look all the same, you've got to go for some wood dye. Now looking at them, I've got two different ones, one spirit based and one water based. I don't think I really have a preference, and strangely enough, they're both medium oak colour. Now, as I say, the first Briwax I used to use, I think was called medium brown. So there's clearly this kind of mid-brown colour that I really like. So this is not really a wood finish, it's a stain or a dye that you're going to apply before the finish, but I store them in the same place, so I thought I'd mention them. So I don't use stains that often because I'm not a big fan of changing the natural look of woods, but with one exception, and that's ebonizing wood. I really like that look. And I've done it quite a few ways over the years. I used to like using the blowtorch to burn wood. Very simple technique, but I've got away from that. And then I moved on to using India ink. This is just the stuff that comes in your fountain pen. So pretty cheap and just works so well. One coat, even on the blondest wood, like some just cheap construction timber, and it will stain it black. Yeah, I use it all the time. So as I say, India ink is pretty cheap and easy to use, but even though it's that cheap, I'm very mean. So I had a go at making my own ebonizing solution. I forgot what this stuff's called, so you can comment down below if you can remember. But it's just a mix of vinegar and some kind of metal that will rust. You can use old nails. I think I used some wire wool that I had. I did a whole video about it, so I will try and put a link down below to it. You just allow the metal to dissolve in there and then strain it all. And then you brush it on and it's like magic. It turns the wood black, but it only works with wood that's got a high tanning content like ash or oak. Pine, it doesn't really work. So still need to use the India ink for that. But this is really great on oak. The last finish brings me back to where I started. Just a simple wax finish, a clear one. I've been using this KB wax, Keith Brown, my podcast co-host, for years, and he sent me this jar for free, and I've probably been using it for 5 years or something now, so a little goes a long way. I love this stuff because on a small project, you just brush it on, buff it off, and you're done. Simple to apply, but you also use it for lubricating things, a wax finish. You've got any bits of machinery, your planer beds, things like that is great for. He stopped making it, unfortunately, but Leo at Handicraft has started making it. So you've got options to get some of this stuff made by one of your favourite YouTubers. So I'll put links to these down below and to everything else that I can actually find links to still, because some of this stuff has been sat in a shed for quite a few years now. I've definitely been on a journey with it all. I'm definitely not a finishing expert though. In fact, it's my least favourite part of a project. But back to Keith Brown again, it's his favourite part. So I think he's got some great videos on the subject that he's passionate about. Me, this is really finishes to use if you're lazy and hate finishes. If it's something you're more interested in and more precise about, he's probably got much better information. So thank you for watching, everyone. As I say, I'll try and put links down to most of this below. Thanks to my patrons, and I'll see you next time.